you all know, my wife, Amy Elliott Dunn, disappeared 3 days ago. I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my wife. I have nothing to hide.
Has Amy got friends we can talk to?
No, not really.
You don't know if she has friends, you don't know what she does all day, and you don't know your wife's blood type.
Gone Girl is David Fincher's adaptation of Gillian Flynn's highly addictive novel of the same name. It's a mystery novel that at its core is actually about a really toxic relationship. The center of that relationship is Ben Affleck, who plays Nick Dunn, and Rosamund Pike, who plays his wife, Amy. Now, those are sort of the basics of the story, and it gets pretty twisty and turny after that, but we're gonna try and stay away from spoilers in this particular review.
Now, you mentioned Rosamund Pike and Ben Affleck, and they're both phenomenal in the movie.
Absolutely.
Her particularly. Tell us about the performances, because this really is kind of an actor showcase.
It is. It's incredibly well cast. I mean, I think that's actually one of the things that stands out. Each role is cast so perfectly so that Kim Dickens, who plays a detective, is a standout. Carrie Coon, who we know from The Leftovers, plays Ben Affleck's sister, is a standout. For me, though, this is really Rosamund Pike's show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Amy is the most crucial character to get right, and also the trickiest character to get right in this film. And she rides that line gorgeously. I think this is going to be a career-defining role for her. I think it might be life-altering. I will be shocked if she is not in the awards conversation. Now, Ben Affleck is great as well. He plays Nick Dunn, and this is what I mean by perfectly cast. Nick is this guy that you have to believe that the public could turn on a dime. Love him and hate him. Love him and hate him.
He has no reference point in real life for that.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's the perfect guy to be that.
Yeah.
He sort of can turn and be smarmy and arrogant in one moment, in one breath, and the very next breath be very likable, sympathetic, and the kind of guy you want to like you. I would say my one caveat is that Neil Patrick Harris, who plays a key supporting role, gives a great performance. However, I do think there was an element of menace inherent in that character that, had it been added and amped up a little bit in this film, would have added another dimension to Amy. I won't say much more about that.
Now, let's talk about the adaptation. You read the book. I hadn't, so everything was kind of a surprise for me. But overall, how do you think this movie fared in adapting such a beloved book?
I loved the book. I was moved by it and affected for days. I think it is deceptively brilliant in the way that it's written. That's another thing. Gillian Flynn wrote the script, so she adapted her own novel. I think she did a solid job. It is for the most part, faithful adaptation. It's magnificently rendered by David Fincher. We'll talk about that in a minute. I will say this. Inherent problem in any adaptation is that you're going to lose some of the nuance. Now, like I said, this is a mystery and it's got some great twists and turns. However, those twists and turns will throw you for more of a loop, I think, in the novel than they do in the film. I think that you see them coming a little bit more in the film. They're telegraphed a little bit more, partially just because of the nature of the medium.
Yeah.
The big key that's missing for me is that there's a definitive evildoer in the novel. However, this is a book about the way men and women treat and view each other at its core in the most heightened of circumstances. And it's ugly, and it's awful, and it's terrifying, and will mess you up in your relationship if you read it. But the movie doesn't quite do that. The movie becomes a little bit more one-sided. It's more about this big twist and this one character who's sort of the bad guy, and the other character becomes far more of a sympathetic player than they are in the novel.
Interesting.
It's not completely balanced. Like I said, there's one definitive evildoer, but the other person, it allows you to delve more into these ideas of a toxic relationship and two people being contributors to it.
Interesting. Yeah. Another thing, though, about the movie, and I think this is where David Fincher and his sort of mastery of the medium kind of comes into play, is it's a very darkly funny movie, too.
Yeah.
I don't think people would go in there expecting that. It's also deeply cynical. I mean, there are a lot of little Fincher-esque things.
The movie is darkly funny, very deeply cynical, as the novel is, and that is the way that I think that it sort of nails the tone. You know, it does skewer the media. It hits on big cultural events. Again, some of the nuances lost, but the main sort of big themes are still there, absolutely. Fincher's a glorious filmmaker. This is why I think he's really perfect. All right, there's this conceit in the novel that Amy her parents have written this series of books called Amazing Amy, and Amazing Amy is the best version of Amy. Yeah. But what the movie's really touching on is that we're all presenting illusions all the time to the world. So Nick has to do that to the world in order to defend himself in the public eye. He has to present an illusion. But the real key is the biggest place that you present an illusion is the beginning parts of a romantic relationship. You're putting on your best face. So Amazing Amy is just something we all do. It's the best, most perfect, nicest, most beautiful version of yourself, right? Fincher is an icy, meticulous, precise filmmaker. He has an amazing team behind him in every single one of his films. And what he does so well is put the image together, right? So that's what this movie is about.
Yeah.
So in some ways, he's the perfect director to have adapted it. If I could have had one more visceral punch for the twist and like the raw emotions roiling underneath them, I would have liked that. But for the most part, his meticulousness lends itself to these themes perfectly.
All right, Roth, so final thoughts on Gone Girl.
For final thoughts on Gone Girl are that I think it's a solid adaptation. I think it's actually a really well done adaptation, though I will say this, by virtue of being an adaptation, that some of the key elements that I think are so rich are lost from the book, and that's kind of sad. However, enough is still there. It's beautifully crafted, well put together. All of the elements are there. I think it's well worth watching. So much to talk about. People are going to be talking about this movie, man, on so many levels, and that's going to be fun. But also, it's just highly entertaining. I mean, it's like a cracking good mystery story, right? Fun to watch, lots to talk about, well put together. David Fincher's a great director. I think you should go see it.
How was your marriage,
Are
Nick?
you asking me if I killed my wife?
Man of my dreams. This man of mine may kill me.
What about my son, Nick?
This man may kill me. In her own words, this man may truly kill me.
You ever hear the expression, the simplest answer is often the correct one?
Actually, I've never found that to be true.